So, good evening, listener. My name is Rob, welcome to another episode of Mysterious Cryptids. This one, we're going to talk about Apecanyon. Now, obviously, if you're familiar with the topic, you probably know the story of Apecanyon, but for those who don't, we'll go into it a bit about it. We wrote a bit of a script on it and some of the cases around it, and some of the other cases around Sasquatch and stuff like that. But basically, Apecanyon, in a nutshell, has just the event itself has just passed its 99th year. So it's just had its 99th year since the event actually happened, and it's quite a famous event within the Bigfoot field. So it's kind of a big thing. It's a well-known story within the field itself. But if you've never heard of it, it'll be interesting for you for the first time. But we are fast approaching the centenary of it, and it's the 99th year since the actual thing itself happened. So we're going to be talking about that. I hope everyone's had a good week. I hope you've had a good week. I hope you had a fantastic week. I've been up to mainly work. We've recently moved office where we are, and over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's slow progress, but we're getting there with everything. And obviously we've still got work to do and these podcasts and stuff. So it's kind of half the studio is like a building site, and the other half is complete. So we're getting there. We're getting there with it. That's kind of been my week, kind of like building sets and soundproofing walls, and bringing in microphones, new lighting and stuff. It's been a bit grueling at times, but it's been good. I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in, so I understand that. I just, when you've just got a list of jobs to do and it's like, where do I start? It's been a bit like that recently, but I hope you've had a good week. We're going to talk about Apecanyon and some of the other stories that I find fascinating around the Mount St. Helens area and stuff like that in Washington State. So, without further ado, Sasquatch and Apecanyon, lying along the southeast shoulder of Mount St. Helens in Washington State, lies a gorge that is called Apecanyon. Why is it called Apecanyon? Well, it goes back as far as the 1920s. So, as mentioned, nearly a centenary. It's 99 years now. The story is as old as time within the field itself, but much more meaningful and somewhat scary. Along the steep rocky canyon is a popular trail for hikers and mountain bikers. A little further on and you would come across Ape Cave. The first encounter in 1924, a group of miners were working in the area and were spending the night in the gorge. They were kind of they had a log cabin there. They were mining, they were doing mining things, looking for their fortune. In the small cabin on Mount St. Helens, the miners that were there, 5, survived a very bizarre attack on one certain night. The story may sound impossible, but it has never been disproved. While settling down to go get some rest, the cabin began to be hit with rocks. Now, this cabin, although it did get hit with rocks, these miners had earlier on in the day, they'd stumbled upon what they claimed as mountain apes, rock apes, as sometimes they're known as, and these massive ape-like things that we now know as Sasquatch and Bigfoot. They were just kind of walking a trail, and they bumped into them. It's 3 or 4 of them. They just bumped into them, and they kind of startled each other. The Sasquatch was, kind of roared, and a confrontation had happened, and one of the miners had shot one of the Sasquatches, according to the story, had shot one of the Sasquatches, and it kind of fell off the edge of the cliff and of this trail going around this gorge area, and it had fallen off the cliff, and the other were kind of screaming and and all this ruckus and what have you. And then they didn't think of it. They went back to the cabin and kind of like, what have we just seen? What has just gone on? What was that? Anyway, that particular night, the cabin that the miners were staying in was literally pelted and attacked by these creatures that we now know as Sasquatch. But at the time, these miners had no idea what they were, and they were literally attacked throughout the night. So the miners walked outside to see what was happening at the time when all these, stones were hitting their cabin. To be sure, it wasn't an avalanche or anything similar like a force of nature. It was actually these things that they'd seen earlier in the day. But these things weren't just like apes. They were more human in appearance, but not human. They were very hard. Anyone, I speak to a lot of people that see Sasquatch and stuff, and anybody that kind of explains what Sasquatch is, it's kind of ape-like and human-like, but neither at the same time, if that makes sense. It's close, but no cigar, if you like, Only they did. So they resembled humans as they walked upright, like a man, but they weren't humans. These things, these Sasquatches were growling and, howling, basically, screaming at them within the cabin. So the miners, after stepping outside briefly to see what was going on, ran back inside for safety. But the incident didn't stop there. Some of the miners grabbed their rifles and began to shoot at the creatures. The rocks would stop for a few moments, only to begin again all through the night. This continued into the morning. The miners did not know if they had shot the apes, or if they even came close, or if the bullets were even having like an impact. But there was at times when the apes had broken through the wood of the cabin in certain parts, on the roof and at the side. They'd broken through, and as they'd broken through, the men were shooting through the holes to try and get them back. They were grabbing at some of the miners that were inside, and it just went on like this for the entirety of the night. One of the apes actually managed to reach through the window, and he tried to grab an axe that was there. The attempt had actually failed. It was unknown what was done to prevent it. It's believed that the gunfire just kind of scared him off, but the actual ape was trying to get an axe, so it was trying to get a weapon at some point, according to some accounts of the story anyway. As dawn arrived, the rocks had pretty much ceased. The miners had ventured outside of the cabin and began to make their way out of the gorge and the canyon. One miner had gotten a good shot off at the creatures, and had later wrote in a book about the incident. They stated the incident had not been disproved to this point, to this day, meaning that no one can definitively say it did or didn't happen. However, it's kind of like a holy site within Bigfoot, kind of. It's up there with Bluff Creek, and a lot of Bigfooters kind of go back to this. They kind of go back to this site every year in on year out. And I'm guessing next year, when it'll be 2024, when it's centenary, I'm guessing it'll be a very busy area within the field. But you can actually go to the site. You can go to the site where the cabin was, and you can they've kind of figured out, like, working backwards through the story where it all is and where it all happened, and you can go and visit this site. But I wanted to talk about this today because obviously it is the 99th year anniversary, but it is kind of one of them tales that it's kind of, I don't know how to best describe it, but it's kind of like one of the big tales within the Bigfoot community. It's up there with the PG film, the Patterson Gimlin film. It's up there with that. It's up there with I would say another one that's up there with it is like Matt Moneymaker's first recording of the Idaho howl. I would say that's kind of up there. These kind of events are up there with like the best kind of stories or evidence, if you like, that we have. So these kind of, within the same area of Mount St. Helens, there was another story I wanted to talk about today. So that's the Hofstaff Bluff on the May 9th, 2002, I believe. Two friends were headed east towards Mount St. Helens. As one friend was looking down the bluff, he could see that 300 yards away there was something walking northeast throughout the creek. Although he had yelled for it to stop, thinking it was a man, it did not stop. From what he could see, the creature was very tall, at least 7 foot tall, but with it being on a bit of a slant, it was hard to gauge, but it was tall. It wasn't normal size, like man size. The arms were much longer than that of the humans. It was also very dark in colour. Although the two friends lost track of the creature, it was enough of a sighting for one of the men to realise that they had just seen a Sasquatch within the same area of Ape Canyon. They continued to look for another 10-15 minutes, but were unable to regain sight of the creature. Within the same kind of area, we've got the 3-acre property. This story, it's interesting, but again, it was in the same kind of area of Ape Canyon and, the other kind of Mount St. Helens area. So 3-acre property, it was late in the fall, very late, but snow had not yet started falling. The leaves were all colours and very beautiful. There was patchy fog that morning, and as they wandered outdoors, as the people of this property wandered outdoors with their morning coffee, they could hear the cattle and their kind of moaning and morning moos, if you like. Then it suddenly sounded very strange. The first thought was a cougar or a mountain lion, something, some kind of big cat, wandering through the property and had scared the cattle. So they ventured out further, not seeing anything at first. As they headed to the fields where the fruit trees were, they noticed something moving in the long grass. Speaking quietly, the husband told the wife to go get the camera. She ran back into the house and, as quietly as could, grabbed the camera and then ran back outside to see what was going on, try and catch something. The long grass was moving, and every so often they could see just a glimpse of something dark. They started to take pictures, just in case they were lucky enough to catch a bear or a cougar or something. And then the smell hit them. And it's a smell that they can't explain. It's almost like rotten meat, like death almost, but not the same. The sounds from the cattle were also different, not a sound they'd heard before, not something like scared or like that. This was something completely different. After looking around the property, they saw nothing strange, but as they ventured out later once again, they were hit by the same odour. As they rushed back to get the camera and arrived back at the location where they were, they saw a creature walking away. Their blood, as the report says, ran cold. This thing was massive, at least 8 foot tall. Long arms, dark with long fur. Snapped the pictures as quickly as they could, and hoping to catch this thing on the camera. Fortunately, the camera wasn't able to focus quickly enough to get a proper shot. Basically, the account goes on to say that they can't say for definite what they saw, but they firmly believe it was a Sasquatch. And this again was within the Mount St. Helens area. Just talking about the Ape Canyon and the Mount St. Helens area itself, there's a lot of activity there. That, well, at least they seem to be anyway up to a point, and then I don't know, it didn't quieten off, but maybe it just became so commonplace that it wasn't as big of a talking point anymore, I suppose, if something happens there all the time. But it's a fascinating area, and it's on one of my lists where I want to go, because like I said, what started it is going back to the old Ape Canyon thing. And as mentioned, nearly 100 years ago, these miners they had no reason to make up this story. There was no, and you got to bear in mind, this is a time when Sasquatch and Bigfoot wasn't really, they didn't even know what to call these things, because the term Bigfoot hadn't been coined yet. That wasn't going to happen for another 30 years. So that name didn't even exist at this point. So it wasn't. They had no benefit for making this thing up at Ape Canyon, and like anyone, like any of these stories we've spoke about within that area, nobody had any reason to make any of these stories up. The two hikers that saw on the side of the gorge this 7 foot plus tall creature, they have no reason to make up anything about this, these creatures. The couple with the cattle, these are eyewitness accounts. These are people that have contacted either me or colleagues of mine, and I've wanted to share their kind of their tale of what they saw within that area. And I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while. I've actually wrote some of the script quite a while ago, but we've been trying to gather extra like eyewitness accounts and stuff, and that's why we put a couple of the other stories in there. But it's a fascinating area, is Ape Canyon, and I think it should be on the list for every like Bigfooter, if you like, to go there. Because going back to the Ape Canyon stuff, the original like story of it, there was no reason for these miners to make this up. There was no reason. And the next day they went back to this, to the local bars or the saloons, as it might have been called back then. And they're telling people their story and relaying their story, and kind of people are like, oh yeah, of course you did, yeah. There was no benefit. There was no benefit for them to make this story up. None at all. They were out there trying to make money, but they were trying to make money from mining. There was no benefit. At this point, there was no like folklore surrounding the Bigfoot. Not really, not like there is today. There was no like intense focus on it, and groups are going out actively looking for it like we do today. It was kind of more set back to native folklore and local folklore, but it wasn't really it wasn't mainstream, if you like, for want a better word, but it wasn't mainstream. So there was no need for these people to make up these really quite like alarming and astonishing claims. These things attacked a cabin, broke through the window, broke through the cabin, tried to get hold of an axe and grabbed one of the miners and injured him. And there was no benefit for these people to lie, none at all. And I think that's what makes it quite credible, and I think that's why people go there year on year out, because it is such a fantastical story. Man versus beast, and it is almost like it's almost Hollywood, isn't it? It is almost Hollywood. And in fact, I can think of films that are very similar to this, and like I can think of them, and it's so. But at a time when Hollywood in its sense of like that didn't exist. It didn't exist. These kind of fantastical like movies of creature versus man, it just wasn't a thing at the time. It was 1920s. So for me, Ape Canyon is more than just a story. I think it's one of the foundation blocks of the field. It is up there with the PG film. It is up there with the certain howls and stuff. The first recording of the long drawn out howl, and yeah, it is. It's the building blocks. It's the foundation of the whole field itself. And I wanted to talk about that this week. I wanted to talk about Ape Canyon. And if you've never heard of Ape Canyon, if this is a new one for you, if this is first time you've ever heard it, then yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fantastical. If by any chance you're not new to the field and you've heard of this, I still wanted to talk about it because it's the anniversary, or we've just gone past the anniversary, should I say. I wanted to kind of get other people's people who are already in the field and know these stories, your thoughts on it. What do you think? Because I like to hear what you think, and people email the show and stuff, and they email me. You can email me anytime, info@robbray.net. That's where I've got a couple of the interviews from, and the eyewitness accounts that I sometimes report on. That's where I get them all through. So if you want to email me, it's info@robbray.net. But if you know this story, I would love to pick your brains about it. And what do you think? What is your thoughts on it? Do you think it were all made up? I don't see any benefit for this being made up at the time. I don't see any benefit or any reason why they would describe what they described in a time when it wasn't mainstream knowledge what Sasquatch and Bigfoot was. It was kind of more left to folklore and whispers in the night kind of thing. It wasn't like it is today. I mean, there's television programs. This very podcast is testament to how mainstream Sasquatch is these days. But there was nothing like that 100 years ago. There was no benefit for this. But I would love to know your opinions on the Ape Canyon incident and what you think. Because I think there's real truth to this. I think there's a real thing, and I think it happened. Maybe people can embellish it, especially when they're under pressure and stress. They can forget or embellish things, but I think the main focus of the story itself, these ape-like things attacking them at night in the cabin, I think is absolutely true, 100% true. I think it happened, absolutely. I have no reason not to believe it didn't happen, because maybe I'm just too trusting of people, but I just think there was no reason or benefit for him to make it up. None at all. So yeah, anyway, in this episode, I just wanted to discuss the Ape Canyon thing. Because, like I said, it is the year, we're coming up to the 100-year anniversary. It is around the time when it happened, and it just seemed fitting to talk about Ape Canyon in this particular episode. And we do have some more interviews coming up over the next few weeks, which I'm really excited for. We're going to be talking to Daniel from another podcast. We're going to be talking to him. We've got a couple more in as well. We've got a skeptic planned in the diary. They're going to come on and talk to us about, why they believe that everyone's wrong, kind of. No, maybe not everyone is wrong, but it's probably a mistaken identity. But again, it has to be a mistaken identity every single time, which is, I don't know. I just find that very hard to believe. But we've got a skeptic coming in very soon to talk to us, and hopefully a couple of scientists as well. We've reached out to a couple of scientists, and hopefully they'll come on and they can give their scientific idea of what they think these things are. Because so far we've touched upon a few of these things. I want to, over the next few weeks, start touching upon the more bizarre cryptids. Because although I do class kind of myself as a cryptozoologist, I wouldn't really, or an amateur scientist, or I don't know what you call citizen scientist. I've heard people coin it as. There's certain cryptids I firmly believe do not exist. Absolutely do not exist. I don't know what they are. I don't know what people claim to have seen or whatever. But I think, for instance, one off the top of my head, I don't think the Jersey Devil exists. If you've never heard of the Jersey Devil, then go Google it. But I won't want to talk about that in this, because obviously it's not the same thing as what we've been talking about. But there's certain cryptids I just don't believe exist. Jersey Devil is one of them. This half goat, half flying bat thing. It has to. I think cryptids have to have some kind of reality. There have to be, there has to be some kind of evolutional lineage for them, And we know big apes have existed. We know the big Asian apes and the big African ape. We know these apes have existed in the fossil record. So there's nothing saying they can't exist now. When we looked at the Orang Pendek a couple of weeks ago, we can say that there has been these small humanoids that exist. So we know that they have existed, and it's not impossible to say that they don't exist now, or something, or some kind of offshoot of them. It's I suppose it's a bit with the whole Loch Ness monster thing, Yes, I suppose these lake monsters, these extinct animals, these these relics of the dinosaur age, these massive reptile things did kind of exist at one point. Do I think the Loch Ness monster exists? I don't think so. I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that I don't think water ripples and stuff is evidence of a huge, massive like plesiosaur. I don't think that's evidence. I do think footprints in soil that go on, for quite some time is evidence. And if you can cast them and you can see the variations in the footprints and how the footprint moved and how it interacted with the soil, that's evidence. Photographs is evidence. Videos is evidence. That is evidence of something existing. Ripples on water isn't, in my opinion. But anyway, getting a bit sidetracked. But yeah, I firmly believe some of these cryptids exist. I think some of them don't. I think some of them don't. I don't think they're rooted in reality. For instance, the Jersey Devil, I just don't think it exists. So it would be good to get a scientist on board. It would be good to get what they think, what they kind of think the whole phenomenon could be. And it was interesting to get a skeptic on board that literally believes in nothing. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I believe in some of them, I don't believe in others. I'm somewhere in the middle. But yeah, today we spoke about the Apecanyon event. It is nearly the 100 year anniversary. Next year will be the 100. I might have to go one year, We are going to we're going to Pennsylvania in October to go Bigfoot hunting. So that'll be exciting. So it might be on my list to go to Apecanyon one year. But anyway, we are running out of time for this podcast. I am going to have to leave it there. It's been great catching up with you again. It's been great just popping in and, having a catch up with you. And I enjoy these chats with you guys. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. And I just like talking about cryptozoology. Be that old accounts or new accounts or interviews. I just love it, talking about it. It's fascinating. And I love sharing what I know and the stuff I write about with you guys. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there. If you do want to contact me, it's info@robbray.net. You can go to our website, cryptidresearch.com. We've recently actually just uploaded some new stuff up there, some new evidence of weird sounds, basically. Some from the UK, some from America. And they're big cat sounds that were recorded in the UK, in the Peak District. We might have to do a podcast on that. And then we did some audio sounds from America that were Bigfoot howls. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great day / evening / commute to work. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And we will be back again with a new episode next week. Bye for now.